Hey y'all, welcome to the July Noir beginning of the vlog. I'm gonna be really quick right now because I'm on my way to Tempe to go to an author signing at the moment. And that author is Angeline Bouie, who wrote Firekeeper's Daughter. I actually haven't read this book yet, but my grandma-in-law, my husband's grandma, has recommended this to me, and then she loved it, and I've heard a lot of people on Booktube and stuff that have really liked it, so I picked it up and I figured it's a free event. I just need to drive about like 30 minutes to get to that event, so I figured might as well go, listen to her talk, her new book that just came out not too long ago, maybe buy that, and hopefully get this book signed. So that's exciting. But I'm going out there a little bit early so I can peruse the bookshelves and see, because I don't go out to the Tempe location very often, but I love this local bookstore. They put on great events. It's changing hands in Phoenix and Tempe. They're great. So I'm gonna go out there and shop for a little bit, and then I'll probably sit for like an hour, get a coffee, and then I'm gonna pick up my first July Noir read, which is When the Reckoning Comes by LaTanya McQueen. And this one fulfills the historical reference prompt. So all I know about this novel is that it's set in the South on a plantation. The main character, Mira, it looks like her name is, left this town, but ultimately one of her good friends just is having her wedding like on this plantation. So she comes back, and during her time being on the plantation, she sees ghosts and spirits, maybe other ancestors and stuff that are kind of upset about this whole situation. And yeah, that's it. That's all that I know. So I will check back in a little bit later tonight once I've read a little bit to give you an update. So follow along with me. I'm sure I'll put some B-roll in here from the bookstore. I'll see you in a bit. Hello. If you can't tell, today is the next day, Thursday, July 18th, and I just wanted to pop in really quick because I did not give an update yesterday after the author event. So to start, just a very quick update about the book that I started for July Noir, which is When the Reckoning Comes. I didn't read a bunch yesterday. I only got to chapter 2, which is about 25 pages, and the book is fast-paced so far, which is great since it's so short. Our main character, Mira, is already on the road to the renovated plantation for the wedding. So yeah, she's already on the way there within one chapter, so I'm excited for her to get there and have the action begin. But I will check back in a little bit later once I've finished a bit more. Probably when I'm like halfway through this book, I'll give you an update on my thoughts and feelings. However, I did want to pop in really quick to do a quick little book haul because obviously I bought some books from the bookstore yesterday after the event. So to start, as I mentioned earlier, I brought Firekeeper's Daughter, which I already owned, with me in case she was doing signings, and she was. They also personalized, which was great. So I got that signed, and she was really great, and she was promoting her second book, which I did not buy. I'll put it on the screen here, called, I always forget what it's called. It's called like Warrior Girl on Earth, I want to say. However, I didn't buy that one because I still need to finish this one. The second book didn't get as great of reviews as this one, which was a New York Times bestseller, so I figured if I want to buy it later, I can. This one's personalized. That was good enough. To quickly run over some of the other books I got used at Changing Hands bookstore in Tempe was Roxane Gay's debut novel, which is, I think, the second to last book that I need to finish my Roxane Gay collection, so that was exciting to find. The next book I got was The Once and Future Witches by Alex E. Harrow. I have not read Alex E. Harrow yet, but I'm excited to, especially because Sydney at Sydney Bookworm loves this, actually has a tattoo that's inspired from this novel. All I know is it's about witches, and the only witch book that I've read so far was, one sec, let me remember what the name of that book was. Okay, after like 5 minutes of me searching for this book, it was The Wicked Deep, which, I mean, I read this in 2018, so it's been a long time, but I really, really liked that young adult novel about witches, and I haven't picked anything up related to witches since then, so when I saw this one was discounted, I decided to pick this one up and give this one a try. The next book I purchased was The Deep by River Solomon. I haven't read a River Solomon book before, but I've been waiting to get my hands on this one specifically, because the premise just sounds really interesting. It's a novella, but it's a fantasy book inspired by the slaves that jumped overboard when they were coming to America, and River Solomon creates a world in the ocean based off of these like black mermaids. So it sounds pretty intriguing, interesting, it's a cool premise, so decided to pick this one up. I might even try to slide it in this month for July Noir, but we'll see. A new release that they had used, which was a cool find, is James by Percival Everett. I am planning on doing a video in the next few months, hopefully, where I read Huck Finn and then compare it to James, because if you don't know, James is a retelling of Huck Finn from James, the character, which is a black slave in Huckleberry Finn. So hoping to do that sometime this year, so look out for that vlog. And then the last book that I got was The Wishing Game, and this was pitched to me as pretty much a Willy Wonka story, but instead of him making chocolate, he was an author, like a really well-known, like best-selling author, and decides to write a book again. There's like a competition, and that's all I really know, but that's all that I need to know because I am a huge like Willy Wonka and like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory fan, so picked this one up. And I actually got Meg Schaefer's newest book, The Lost Story, from Book of the Month this month, and I will probably start with The Wishing Game, the debut novel, first, and then move into The Lost Story. But yeah, it was great. I found all of those books for like less than 30 bucks, which is like unheard of. That bookstore is one of my favorites. But that's pretty much it. I will check back in a little bit later today once I've read more of When the Reckoning Comes. It doesn't matter how close we are with these two mics on.
Yeah, I mean, they're omnidirectional, so it'd be best to maximize distance.
Alrighty, it is the next day. Today is Friday the 19th, and time for another update. So, yesterday, as you could tell from the B-roll, my husband was off for the day, so we just kind of hung out. We finished a little puzzle, which was cute, listened to an audiobook, and then I read that night. Fun fact, I started this vlog on Wednesday because I thought that July Noir started on Wednesday and it was 2 weeks long, but apparently it actually starts today, which is Friday. So aside from the one chapter that I read on Wednesday, I didn't read anything until right around midnight last night, but I did get to page 107, and I'm really liking this so far. I really am. It's a really easy and quick read. The writing's not anything crazy or exceptional, like I'm not really tabbing or anything, but I am having a great time just going through the story. So we learned that Mira was really good friends with Jesse, who is a male, black male, and Celine, who was their white friend, like I explained earlier. And I'm already at the point where Mira is at the plantation and the wedding is about to start. She's ran into Jesse again, and she has met Celine, who's all wrapped up in her rich like fiance now. And I really like the explanation of the plantation itself and how it's renovated. And it's really weird. It's kind of like Get Out-esque, where they have a bunch of like black people who are working there, employees, and they make it look like it's back in the day. I mean, like, obviously they're not like giving them lashes or like you don't see a body hanging from a tree, but it's all black people that are working to kind of give you this immersive experience, kind of like Disney World, you know? So you feel like you step back in time. They keep saying like antebellum themed. And I'm interested to see where that's gonna go, because I feel like there might be a little paranormal element with that. There is obvious paranormal elements. There have been spirits in here already, and interested to see what happens with that, because they seem pretty upset that these mainly white people are coming to this attraction where so much history, like brutal history, has happened that they're trying to cover up. Another side plot with this, so it starts in present day, whatever the present day is, where Mira is going to Celine's wedding. But there are flashbacks to when they were a kid, because there was an event that happened where where Mira and Jesse went to go find this shack that was on this plantation field that's supposed to be haunted, and things happen, and ultimately Jesse gets arrested. However, eventually he's released, but there's some paranormal elements with that story, and still trying to figure out what's going on there, which is a fun little quest, little side story. So yeah, that's pretty much all I want to say about this story right now, but like I said, I really, really like it. I'm tandem reading it, so I read it in bed last night with my headphones, listening to the audiobook and reading it, and I really like it. The audiobook narrator is exceptional, so I'm having a really good time with that. Since today is the official start of July Noir, I know that Ashley from Bookish Realm is going to be starting the sprints, because the actual host, Bree, is moving today. So obviously Bree's gonna be a little bit busy. So I'm excited to start that and hopefully finish this book today. I have about 130 pages left, so that shouldn't be a problem. And then I'll figure out what my next read's going to be. I got up early this morning and have started planning for the month of August for my YouTube channel and Instagram. So I'm gonna continue that and listen to some of the audiobook, and then I will check back in with y'all once I finish this book. So yeah, I'll check back with you in a little bit. Bye. Okay, so I just started chapter 9, which is on page 107, and ultimately it's a dream, but there's some insect shit that she's writing that is making me feel so itchy right now, so I probably look pretty wild on camera, but I just wanted to throw that in there so you know what part I'm on and what I'm reading. But that was a little yucky. It was the first body horror kind of scene that I've seen so far. Yeah, I'm gonna keep reading to get some more B-roll. We're starting with the first round of Noir sprints. We're back, and today is Saturday the 20th. For starters, I just wanted to say I got some new mics. I got these Rode Wireless Go 2 mics, if you can see that, and as you could probably see in some of the B-roll and stuff, I've just been messing around with them, and my husband's been helping me out. So you're probably going to see multiple renditions or versions of how I'm holding and utilizing these mics in this vlog, just to do some experimentation. Anyway, okay, so I ultimately finished When the Reckoning Comes last night after the first July Noir sprints. And I had a really good time with this book. I did only give it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. However, this is a book that I would still suggest to people to read because it's a very quick, fast paced, easy to follow story that leads to further important discussions that can be had and can be a little bit deeper of a discussion afterwards. I really only gave it a 3.5 just because I feel like the writing was pretty elementary. I am someone that likes to like annotate my books and to have hard-hitting sentences that I like ponder on and stew on and can write down as like a favorite quote. But this writing wasn't really like that. It was very straightforward and simple, and not that that's a bad thing, but I think that I just could have added a little bit more oomph from the writing for what I normally like. What else? The ending. So I've told you that the pacing for this book was very fast. You start in the first chapter, like at the end of the first chapter, she's already damn near at the plantation. So it happens very quickly. However, there were so many important events that happened towards the end of the book that I wish there was another like 100 pages to kind of dive into some of the paranormal elements a bit more and to have deeper conversation about what slaves actually went through and what it means to not only like the ancestors and the dead slaves, but black people today for these renovated plantations that people utilize as like vacation spots or resorts and like these very luxurious like destinations or event spaces that people actually utilize in the South for weddings and things like this actually happens, and I wish that there was more of that discussion like on page in this book. But yeah, it was good. It was a great way to start off July Noir. It was a really good time. I finished it in like 24 hours, so yeah, it was fantastic. The paranormal elements of this book aren't super scary. Like, it's not like a jump scare. You can't read, like, oh, I can't read this at night. It's not that kind of book. The horror of this book is honestly what I really like in horror novels is when it is based off of the truth. So, the stories of things that happened to these slaves on this plantation is what the real horror of this book is. And I did really enjoy that. And the horror of white people coming into this plantation and kind of trying to whitewash it and act like these very harsh realities didn't happen. That's the horror of this whole situation. And I really liked that angle. I think that's all I really want to say about that book. 3.5 out of 5. Anyone should read it. It was good. Slight change from my TBR. I woke up today and realized on social media that today is like Parable of the Sower Day. So July 20th, 2024 is when Parable of the Sower starts. Like, it's written on page. Let me see if I can show you really quickly. 1 second. Yeah, on the first page, if you can see here, it literally has the date right there at the beginning. So I haven't read this book before. I have a good idea of what it is, but I like to just read the synopsis for you so I'm not spoiling anything that I don't realize is a spoiler that may have been spoiled for me. So here we go. When the global climate change and economic crisis lead to social chaos in the early 2020s, California becomes full of dangers, from pervasive water shortage to masses of vagabonds who will do anything to live to see another day. 15-year-old Lauren Olamina lives inside a gated community with her preacher father, family, and neighbors, sheltered from the surrounding anarchy. In a society where any vulnerability is a risk, she suffers from hyperempathy, a debilitating sensitivity to others' emotions. Precocious and clear-eyed, Lauren must make her voice heard in order to protect her loved ones from the imminent disasters her small community stubbornly ignores. But what begins as a fight for survival soon leads to something much more, the birth of a new faith and a startling vision of human destiny. So I actually started this book back in 2020. Everyone was very excited about this book because it's kind of about a global pandemic or the world kind of going to shit in 2020. So people were like, what the fuck? Is Octavia E. Butler, like, did she write exactly what's gonna happen to us in this book, and she was just way ahead of her time. So when I saw on Instagram that today is the actual day, I couldn't pass up the opportunity to read that book today. So I don't think it fits into any of the prompts necessarily, so I'll probably just use it for the free space. But I think if I tandem read it today, I don't have anything else going on, I could probably get close to finish with this like 320 something page book. So yeah, that's kind of a surprise, and I'm taking you guys with me, but I think that's a cool thing to do if I can actually read it on the date that it fully starts in this novel. So yeah, like I said, I have nothing to do today. I got everything taken care of in terms of the house. It's about 2 p.m. right now, and my husband's at work until 1 or 2 in the morning. So I am going to sit here with the cats and read Parable of the Sower. So I'll check in when I have a little bit of an update with that book. So we just got a Roomba. I meant to unbox it on camera, but totally forgot to. And as you can see, the cats are not too sure about it. But it's cracking me up. What's up? So it is the morning of the 21st, and I'm getting up, getting ready. It's about like 10:30, 11 o'clock this morning, and today I plan on filming my mid-year freakout tag and a second video of books that I'm in the middle of, because I have a terrible habit of picking up books, reading like halfway through, and then setting it down. So that'll be like my pile of shame video. However, I did want to do a quick update of Parable of the Sower. I got to page 164 last night, and honestly, this is a little different than I thought it was gonna be. For starters, I want to say that I do know that this is supposed to be a trilogy. So there's Parable of the Sower, which is the first one, and then the second one is Parable of the Talents. But unfortunately, I believe Octavia Butler passed away before finishing the third book, so it's not really complete. You can tell that the buildup is for a trilogy because it's a little more slow moving than I thought it was gonna be. Not that it's bad, the writing is great. Obviously, I've tabbed quite a bit already. But a lot hasn't happened yet. So, as we said, this is like a dystopian world where the main character, Lauren, and her family pretty much live in this walled off area in their neighborhood, and everything outside of the wall is just like anarchy. Like, there's people it's pretty much like houseless people that are on drugs and stuff that will just kill you for basic necessities of life. And this little community that they're in is walled in, and they're kind of privileged to be in that situation. But things start to happen, it's not seeming very safe anymore there. People go missing, and there's now this new place called, what is it called? Octavian? Olivar is what it's called, and apparently this is somewhere in a different part of California where large companies have developed like jobs for people so they can come in and do these jobs. However, they're not going to get paid as well as they would have in the past before the earth kind of went to shit. And our main character, she started out at 15 and now she's getting close to 18 and trying to decide if she wants to explore and go on the outside of the walls by herself, or if she wants to do this with her love. I forget what his name is, but someone that she's been with since she was like 12. And yeah, I don't really want to ruin much. I feel like that's pretty much it. I don't want to give too many too much detail on like why she's leaving and what's going on, so I feel like that's spoiling the book. But yeah, that's all I know. She's still in her little area right now and deciding what she wants to do. Another thing in this book is that there's a big element of like faith-based like trust, or like faith in general, and the main character, her father is a preacher, I believe a Baptist pastor, and throughout the book she says that she doesn't believe in that kind of God, but she has her own type of religion. And throughout all of these chapters there's little snippets from what is her book, or like her type of Bible. I'm not really sure where it's going with this yet, but it's called Earthseed, which this trilogy, it's the Earthseed trilogy. So we're getting a little bit of vignettes and stuff from that book, but it hasn't really dove into that faith yet and where this is going to take her. I'm guessing that when she goes outside of the wall, she's going to have a group of followers and see where this faith goes, but that's all that I know so far. I'm enjoying it. The writing's good. Like I said, it's just a little more slow paced than I thought it was gonna be, but I'm excited to continue it today. So today is very much an editing day. On Sundays, I like to join sprints with Princess and Bree from Bree Cherie Reads. So I'll do some sprints and then film these 2 videos, hopefully get them edited, because the mid-year book freakout tag should come out tomorrow. So I'm just getting ready right now, and I'll take you guys with me, and I'll check in once I have more of an update. Peace. Side note, always wear your sunscreen. If you're a black girl like me, Belief is great. The True Cream Aqua Bomb sunscreen, I also use their moisturizer, but it doesn't leave a white cast, it doesn't make you feel greasy. Go out and get this. It is kind of expensive, not gonna lie, but it's worth it, especially for someone who lives in Phoenix, where I need this all the time. It's great. So, yeah. Okay, y'all, real quick. So I am like getting ready to set up for the mid-year book freakout tag, and I just got a notification that Joe Biden dropped out of the race. So he basically said that he is promoting Kamala Harris for the race, and he just needs to focus on his current duties as president, which is insane. I'm like, I just don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen. I mean, I'm just in shock, and I had the camera out, so I figured I would throw that out there, although this isn't gonna go up for a little bit, but wild. I feel like, what world are we living in? What world are we living in right now? And reading Pariwo Sower right now, I just feel like I'm in a brain fuck at the moment. Just need to pop in for a second. That's all. We'll get back to the vlog. I'm back, and it's been a couple of days since I've last talked to you. It is Wednesday the 24th, and I have an update. So I finished Pariwo Sower last night, and to get straight to the nitty-gritty, I ultimately gave it 3.5 stars. I still thoroughly enjoyed the book, and I think the comparisons from what Octavia Butler imagined and envisioned when she wrote this novel in 1993, and to see some of the parallels that she was almost spot on with now in 2024, like to the date July 20th, 2024, is wild in and of itself and why this book has had a lot of buzz. Let me say that's not the only reason why it has a lot of buzz, but that's a big reason for why it has a lot of buzz currently, or since the pandemic in 2020. The only reason why I gave it a 3.5 star is I had some issues with the pacing a little bit. The beginning kind of talks about her family, and they're in this walled-in space, and the world building is happening, and she's great at world building. I do want to say that. I just think that it could have gotten there a little bit faster. So between the part of when we're just kind of understanding her family, and this community, to when she eventually leaves these safe walls and goes out into the real world, we're over halfway through the book when that happens. And then at that point, once she leaves the walls, we're introduced to so many characters just back to back to back, and I did feel like there wasn't enough time for you to really resonate and like feel like you're like feel for the characters. So that was kind of unfortunate. However, it still was interesting. I think her religion, like this earthseed thing that she's kind of spewing, and you get, like I said, little vignettes at the beginning of each chapter, and she talks about her religion a little bit, was kind of fascinating. I think it was a little far-fetched from her starting out being like a 15-year-old girl to ending it at 18 and kind of damn near being like a cult leader with this religion that she just made up. I feel like she kind of came across as pretentious and like a know-it-all, which was kind of annoying, but not the end of the world. I think if you have an interest in starting with Octavia Butler, you should go for it. This was my first Octavia Butler book, and I'm very eager to continue. I've also talked to a lot of my like bookish friends, and no one says that Pariwo of the Sower is their favorite book, to be honest. Like, a lot of people said like Kindred and Mind of My Mind and other sci-fi books that she's written were some of her favorites. So I think that makes me really even more intrigued to pick up more about Octavia Butler's books. But yeah, I think it was great, and I'm eager to continue with Parable of the Talents. We'll see if I get to it next month or not, but it's definitely on my radar to see where the story goes. I think where it ended is totally okay. It's kind of a open-ended ending, but I was worried that it was going to end in a way that was really lackluster, especially because there were supposed to be 3 books in the series, and there's actually only 2 because Octavia Butler passed away before the 3rd book was finished. But honestly, if you wanted to just read Parable of the Sower, you totally could, and it would be fine on its own. So yeah, 3.5 out of 5. It was a great read, and I know it's a little bit vague, but it's kind of one of those you just need to go into the world yourself, and then you can have conversations, because this book is definitely a book that I can see like high schoolers reading or like book clubs reading, because there's a lot of discussion that can be had in regards to the themes and stuff about this book. So if you want to talk about it, hit me up on Instagram or leave a comment and leave a comment in the comment section. But if it's spoilers from anything that's not on the back of the book, just make sure you put the spoiler blurb and or spoiler word and indent a bit so it's not spoiled for anyone else. So I actually started the next book for July Noir, which is All the Sinners Bleed. And I am honestly very surprised because I am thoroughly enjoying this read. I'm tandem reading it, listening to the audiobook and reading it physically, but I'm really surprised because I read Razorblade Tears a few years ago and I didn't really like it. I mean, I gave it like a 2.5 or 3-star read, and I felt like I was in the minority for that because so many people said that was like their favorite thriller or favorite book of the year, and you hear so much about S.A. Cosby, so I was very eager to give him another try. Obviously, I'm going to give Black authors more than one try, just because that's just who I am. They need as much support as possible, but this thriller jumps off with a bang, like immediately, so you're immediately invested into the story from the first page. This book starts with a school shooting that's not a That's not a spoiler. I guess I'll read the flap for you in 1 second so you know what the book is about. But that's not a spoiler, but it starts immediately with that. Like within the second chapter, that situation has already happened. So it's very fast paced. Right now I'm really liking it. However, I do want to say that S.A. Cosby's writing is very straightforward. I feel like sometimes an issue that I have with Razorblade Tears is some of the themes that he was talking about in terms of like being gay in the South. I feel like he beat it to death and it was just too overly written in the book. And once in a while, like some of like the main character, the black sheriff, what's his name? Titus, he can come across a little preachy and stuff, but I'm having a good enough time so far that it's not bothering me, and it feels like a compulsive read. Like I'm very eager to get back into it. I am currently on chapter 7, which is page 83. And today, that is all I'm planning on doing is reading. If I can get a little further in, there is a video that I would like to shoot, but I can probably do that tomorrow morning as well. I am currently on Jess Owen's sprints. They're reading Stormlight Archive, but I am continuing with July Noir. I think that's it. I'm interested to see, and I'm hoping that like nothing changes with S.A. Cosby, and I'm hoping that it continues to be a page turner for me, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it more than I was enjoying Razorblade Tears, but we'll see. So I'm gonna grab a drink, I'm gonna read for a bit, and I'll check back in once I've read a little bit more of All the Sinners Bleed by S.A. Cosby. Hello. So it is the next day, and as you can tell from the previous clip, I had a really cool Zoom like book club meeting with Akwaeke and Emezi and a bunch of other people. I think there were like 130 of us in there to talk about their novel Little Roth that just came out last year. I've read it. I'll link my thoughts from my previous wrap-up above, but of course Emezi is one of my favorite writers and they are exceptional. Pick up that book if you haven't, or any of their other books. They're great. But it was really cool that Emezi chose to be on like a live Zoom where if we wanted to be unmuted, we could be unmuted. We could put whatever questions we wanted live in the chat that they would answer, and it was just really fun. Their friend Anne, who hosted this, is actually creating a new social media platform called Pariwo. I'll link it here. It's just getting off the ground, but it's a social media that's fit for people like me, Black people in general. And I'm gonna link some of that information above, and if you want to support that business, definitely do so. Okay, so other than that, I did read some more of All the Sinners Bleed last night. I'm about 2/3 of the way through, and I am still enjoying it. I'm not going to update too much on the plot right now because since it's a mystery and I'm trying to keep this kind of spoiler free, I don't want to give too many of my thoughts about what I think is happening in case I am right. However, I do want to say that S.A. Cosby is doing a great job with keeping me on my toes. I don't feel like I know who this serial killer is. There's so many fingers that are pointed at very suspicious characters, and there's quite a few of them, so it's fun, and I'm compulsively reading, trying to figure out what's happening. So yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with that. I'm hoping to finish this book today. I should be able to. I think I have like 4 or 5 hours left in the audiobook. And yeah, that's pretty much my plan for today. I need to film a couple of videos still, but I plan on doing that tomorrow and keep kind of making that my editing day. I keep pushing it back a little bit, but I'm just so enthralled with this book that I just want to keep reading. So that's what I'm going to do. Other than that, that's it. You'll see a little bit more B-roll, and I'll check in when I'm finished with All the Sinners Bleed. can see, my table is a mess, but I am getting organized to start batch filming, catching up on some YouTube videos there. But here's all the stacks I had to pull out because I'm about to film for the majority of the day. Okay, I am here with the update finally. Today has been pretty much just editing, vlogging, catching up, yeah, just a big productive day. So I haven't done any reading today, but I did finish All the Sinners Bleed. And ultimately I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. It was good. I haven't read a lot of crime fiction novels. This is like my second or third maybe, and I really liked it. I like this a lot better than Razorblade Tears. I only gave it a 4 just because I feel like some of the themes of like the Black experience, especially the Black experience being in the South, things like that were just a little heavy-handed and could have, I think it was spelled out to the reader a little too much. And there were also some plot holes in this novel that kind of bothered me. So as I was saying in the previous clip, I was like, oh, this is a great idea because there are so many different characters that are kind of suspicious. I'm not really sure how this is gonna work out. But in the end, I feel like hardly anyone could have guessed like who the culprit was, you know? And there was definitely holes there. Like one of his love interests, Darlene, was in this story, but I'm just like, for what? Like, I really don't think that she was there for any reason. She just kind of got fucked over pretty much, like not a big spoiler or anything, but it was like, what was the point aside from her being there and being like, oh, maybe that was her? I don't know. There were just some holes in this story, but I had a fun time. Like I said, I tandem read it and I kept wanting to go back to see what was going to happen. And that's the point of a thriller. So I would definitely say pick this one up instead of Razorblade Tears. I think that I'm in the minority for that, but that's just how I feel. I think this was a compulsive read. It was great. There were a lot of discussion topics that were hit. I think this is a good book club pick. Yeah, so it was good. 4 out of 5 stars for S.A. Cosby here. So now I need to fulfill the Indigenous author hole and the musical element hole on my July Noir TBR. So I actually had Changeling, which I'll put here, I didn't grab it, for the Black author hole, but I think I'm gonna ultimately not read that one because I'm just running out of time. Today is the 26th, I believe, Friday the 26th, and I just don't have a lot of time. So instead, I have the Violin Conspiracy, which fulfills the music element, and it can also, as well as S.A. Cosby, fulfill the prompt of read from a Black male author. So that's already covered. I'll just duel up. I just won't read the Changeling. But I'm excited for this one. I got the audiobook, so I'm gonna tandem read this as well. It looks like it's just over 300 pages. So yeah, I'll be picking this one up later tonight. I do have some editing to do still, but this is the next one that I'll be reading. And then depending on how long it takes me to finish this book, I'll determine which Stephen Graham Jones book I want to read. So originally I said that I was going to read The Only Good Indians, and this is the one that I really want to get to because this has been on my TBR the longest and I hear the most about this one. However, I might run out of time, and if that's the case, I do have another novella that I might pick up, which is Mapping the Interior. So this one's obviously a lot shorter, so I'm still gonna try to read this one, but if I run out of time, I'll pick this one up. I'm also in the middle of Amari and the Night Brothers, which would have just been for the free space, but I ended up reading Pariwo the Sower instead for that in order to read it on July 20th, like I've said. But I do want to finish Amari for sure because I'm reading with Jess Owens for her readathon, so I definitely want to finish that one. So I'm going to put that one higher up in my priority, and if that means I need to just squeeze this in and read it within like an hour, then I'll do that. So I'll keep y'all updated. Yeah, like I said, I'm going to edit for a bit, and we'll see if I have some time later tonight to pick up the Violin Conspiracy. Bye. All right, so it is the next day. If you can't tell, it's the 27th of July, which is a Saturday. Yesterday I didn't get any reading done, so I don't have an update for you, but I did get a bunch of content batching finished and editing. That's what I did all day yesterday. So today I am just going to read. That's all I have planned. I am getting to the end of the July Noir, just a few more days, so I'm hoping to get a big chunk of the Violin Conspiracy done today. I just wanted to pop on for a second because I had some Amazon packages and I started to open them, and I was like, why not do it on camera? So for the first one, nothing interesting. It was just a pop socket because I got a new case for my cell phone, and these phones are big as hell now and my hands are pretty small, so I have to use a pop socket with it. But this one is the one you guys are gonna care about because this is a book. I am eager for this one. All right. Oh, it's bigger than I thought. So I decided to purchase I Was a Teenage Slasher by Stephen Graham Jones, because this is the pick for the Literally Dead Book Club and the Book Troop Book Club pick. They joined together, so I wanted to read it for that. And I'm also throwing this on my full moon readathon TBR, so I'm very excited about this. I think I mentioned before that I haven't read Stephen Graham Jones, and that's not true. I own Night and the Mannequins. Actually, let me go grab it really quick, hold on. Okay, I'm back. Editing Scotty didn't want to have to search for the photos and put those all in here when I have them right here. So I was talking about Night of the Mannequins. I read this a few years ago and totally forgot that this was Stephen Graham Jones. It was a weird, short, quirky little story, but I liked it. So as I mentioned in the previous clip, I also have Mapping the Interior, which I got secondhand recently from my local bookstore. So I was saying that today, I pretty much want to get through the Violin Conspiracy, and then I need to read Amari and the Night Brothers. So depending on how much reading I can get done in the next couple of days, it'll determine if I pick up what I originally wanted to pick up was The Only Good Indians, or if I want to pick up Mapping the Interior. So stay tuned for that. But I want to keep going with Stephen Graham Jones's list, and this one sounds really interesting, so I'm very excited about this one. I want to see what the hardcover looks like. Oh, okay, it's just like a maroon. But this story, the way it was pitched to me, is like a fictional memoir about a kid who turns into a serial killer. So it's a slasher, obviously, but that sounds really interesting, and I'm curious to continue with Stephen Graham Jones's work. So there you go. That's the only update I really have. I am going to read, even though I'm kind of distracted because the Olympics started yesterday and I was up way too late watching the men's gymnastics, and I've watched a little bit of that this morning. It's about, yeah, it's 2 p.m. here right now, so I need to get some reading done if I'm trying to complete this July Noir. So I'll check back in once I've read a little bit of the Violin Conspiracy. They're still not too sure about the Roomba. Hello. I am back after a couple hours, and I am on page 100, which is actually getting into part 3. So I'm about a third of the way in, and it's kind of slow going. So I thought it was going to be a lot more fast paced because in the first chapter, basically at the end of the first chapter, which is only, like, it's less than 10 pages, the violin's already taken. So this basically the story, just a quick recap because it's been a little bit, is that there is this kid who is kind of a violin, like, prodigy or fiddle prodigy, and he finds his grandpa's old fiddle, his great-great-grandfather, which he calls Pop Pop, his old fiddle that his grandmother gives to him when he's a kid, and it's worth like $5 million or something, and it's stolen. And that's what you learn in the first chapter.
And then starting in the second chapter, it goes back to when he's a kid, and it kind of explains how he got into music, how he got the fiddle. Like I explained, they talk a lot about him finding this fiddle. He's in high school, and he's a senior in high school, and he's auditioning for colleges and stuff. He has a hard relationship with his mother, who's not really supportive of his dreams with playing music as a profession or even going to college, even though he has a full ride potentially for this. And yeah, some other quick thoughts is a thing that I mentioned that was bothering me in All the Sinners Bleed was that S.A. Cosby, I feel like a lot of the time writes the racial experience of being like a black man like very heavy-handed on the page. And I don't really like that, but I think I realized that that approach is okay if it's told from a child's perspective. So what I mean is that Brendan Slocum kind of does the same thing where he is writing on page what it means to be a black man, and I believe it's Charlotte, North Carolina is where they're at. And it's very heavy-handed on page, but it makes sense because this kid is, 14, 15, 16 years old, or he's in high school. I'm not sure exactly how old he is. But that makes sense because I can relate to that and I remember how I felt when I was coming of age, But it comes across more of like preachy to the reader when it's coming from an adult's perspective. For instance, in All the Sinners Bleed, the main character, like he's a grown-ass man, he's a sheriff. So when these things are explained to the reader, point blank period on page, it just feels a little weird to me and doesn't feel like good writing. But yeah, I don't know. I'm still trying to figure that out. I will determine how I feel about that once I read a little bit more. But I thought that was interesting because I was like, well, I critiqued one book in this regard, but I see it showing up in the same way in this, but it's okay for me. So what is the reason? But I think that's what it is, but I'll ponder it a little bit more. Another thing is that this mom is a complete bitch. Like, I haven't hated a character so much since like Umbridge from Harry Potter. Like the way that Brendan Slocum has written this mom is great because I really can't stand her, and it's a little bit triggering, not gonna lie. But yeah, another thing that I wanted to talk about is the timeline, or like not the timeline, but the setting of this book. So when he goes back in time, like I said, it starts with the main character, Ray, when he's an adult and he realizes that this special, really expensive fiddle is missing. It goes back in time when he's a high schooler. But when he's in high schooler, he talks about how he's in Charlotte, North Carolina, and they mention like technology that's around right now, like PlayStation 5. Like, so it seems like when he's a kid, it's in this day and age, but he deals with racism like every time he meets a white person, and it feels like it's like damn near Jim Crow era. So I feel kind of weird about that. I'm like, let me know in the comments if I'm wrong, or maybe like future editing Scotty will pop in if I have the timing wrong, but it's just not really matching up unless that part of North Carolina, like if Charlotte is really that racist still, I don't know. But I mean, I'm from Indiana, which I mean isn't progressive by any means, and I can relate to certain things, especially being a black female flautist. Like I played flute for a long period of time in my life, and there are definitely some racist things that happen. But I mean, in this book, it feels like every time he meets any white person, there's a very overt racist thing that happens, and I'm like, okay, like, does that really happen still? Like, is it like the 50s or 60s? I don't know. So I'll do a little bit of research and make sure I have the timeline right, and I'll update you once I do a little bit more research and read a bit more. But overall, I'm liking it. It's just a little more slow moving. I don't know where it's gonna go. Like I said, I just got to part 3, and I'm not sure if it's gonna jump back to when he's an adult and like present time when the violin's missing, or if it's gonna continue with him being a kid. So we'll see. I'm enjoying it. The audiobook, like I said, I'm tandem reading it, which I've been doing for pretty much all of this vlog. The audiobook's really great. In between each chapter, there's like actual music that's playing. And I think Brandon Slocum actually plays the violin. Let me see. Yeah, he has a degree in music education with concentrations in violin and viola. So you can tell that he knows what he's talking about. I was like, either he really did his research or he has played himself. So that's really cool, and there's music in the audiobook, so if you're thinking about listening to it, I would say pick up the audiobook for the immersive feel. But yeah, that's all I have for y'all right now. I'm going to continue listening for the next few hours. It's about 9 o'clock my time, and yeah, I don't really have any other plans the rest of the night. Husband's at work, so I'm just gonna keep powering through, and I'll check in when I have an update in a bit.
Hey y'all, so I am back. It has been several days now, and I apologize, but I think the last place I left off, I was reading a bit and give an update of the Violin Conspiracy, which I have here, and I also managed to make it through Mapping the Interior, and I finished these for July Noir. So I just wanted to check in and apologize I didn't finish out this vlog the way that I wanted to. I wanted to talk about each book on each day, but the Olympics have started, and I tried to fit as much reading as I could and kept watching the Olympics with my husband. So yeah, here we are. So I'm going to close out this vlog, but I'm going to obviously go over Violin Conspiracy, my final thoughts, go over Mapping the Interior, and kind of go over in general how I felt about the books and like what books I actually read versus what books I replaced and yada yada. So, to start, the Violin Conspiracy, I ultimately gave 3 out of 5 stars. So, where do I want to start with this? Let's just talk about it being a mystery to begin with. So I haven't read a lot of mysteries. I've read a lot of thrillers, but I would consider this one more of a mystery and trying to figure out who done it, like who stole this violin. And I do want to say without spoilers that I guessed what the ending was going to be for this book, like the moment the violin went missing. So that obviously took a lot of enjoyment out of it because I want to be surprised, but I felt like anyone could have guessed what the ending of this book would have been. However, I did like the musical element in this book, and I did like that it talked about being a Black violin player and how that is different than being a white really good violin player. And I really liked that Brendan Massey. Who the hell is Brendan Massey? Isn't that the guy from That's So Raven? What's his name? I'll put him here. I don't know where that came from. But Brendan Slocum, who is the author of this book that we're talking about, he actually is a professional violin player and plays viola as well. So I really like that aspect of it. I didn't feel like it was too heavy-handed. However, I do want to say that the amount of race-related relationships, specifically that this main character had with almost every single white character in this book, felt like a lot. And I'm not saying that these things don't happen. And I read the author's note, and he makes a big point to say, like, people will say that this book is far-fetched and things like this don't happen, but these are things that have happened in my life. And I understand that, and I can relate to that, and I can understand how that can get frustrating. However, when you put all of these traumatic things into pretty much a 300-page book for a boy, from a person, or a guy who is going from like teenage years to maybe 20, like not even that big of a jump. Like I think he was still in college, like that's just a lot, and it just seemed a little much. And I can understand, like, before I read the author's note, I was like, this is so far-fetched. But then when I read the author's note, I understood what his point was in writing this book. However, I think he just threw in way too many examples for the time frame that we had in this book. I also think that him taking his own experiences, I mean, I don't know exactly how old he is, but I mean, he looks like probably like my parents' age. And I think, or I would hope, that some things have changed a little bit from when he was going to school to now, say, the person in this day and age, which this book was written in, like, you know, maybe 2020 or in the 2020s, that's 16 and in school now, would hopefully be a little bit different. But
Like I said, I don't really know. I don't live in Charlotte. I'm not in this world, but that's just my 2 cents on it. But it didn't hinder the experience that much for me. Like I said, I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. I'm always gonna support like Black authors in general, and it was good. I'm gonna be honest about that. It was okay. It was just, I enjoyed my time with it. I'm glad that I read it. It did lead to other conversations, but I think that it was a little bit heavy-handed, kind of. It just wasn't enough space to like actually dissect and discuss each traumatic thing that happened. And like I said, I think every single, like, if anyone's read this book, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think every single white person in this book was like a villain. So I don't really like that black and whiteness either, but yeah, I'm glad I picked this up. This is why July Noir is like a cool readathon, because I wouldn't normally pick this mystery up, especially like the Violin Conspiracy. Like, that's not anything I would normally pick up, but I am interested and I would read another book from this author. So then, at that point, the Olympics had started, and I wanted to finish my list, which I'll put the image here. I wanted to finish all of those books. However, I started to get tactical so I could figure out how to say I still completed this, but not be able to read all of the other books that I had ready to go. So I decided not to read The Changeling because that was for the prompt written by a black male author, and The Violin Conspiracy and All the Sinners Bleed, both of those authors are black males, so you can double up on prompts, and that worked out. And then I was really hoping to read The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones, but I think I mentioned this in a previous clip that I actually had Mapping the Interior, and I ultimately decided to pick this up because I could just get through it a lot faster. And I'm glad that I did, because this was so good. I think on Goodreads I gave it 4 stars, but honestly, the more that I think about it, and I actually went back and watched Bree's live show with Katie, I believe. I'll leave it down below. And I didn't know that other booktuber, and unfortunately I don't see that they're doing videos anymore. I'll put her here. And she's an indigenous, or I think she's an indigenous booktuber, so it was cool to go back and see that, and it really like got my gears turning. I actually read this book 2 times in like 3 days because I was thinking about it so much. And Stephen Graham Jones' writing is different. However, I know it's not going to be for everyone, but I loved it because it felt real, like I was talking to people on the res. A little backstory about me: I have worked on the Native American reservation Gila River that is out here in Arizona for quite a while, like very intimately. And some of the like abrupt end conversations or abrupt ending sentences and then moving to the next thing like threw me back to that world like so much. And I think that obviously he does a good job and shows a lot of that representation in here. This book is about grief, really, and basically the loss of a culture and what it means to lose your culture and how that is horrific in and of itself. And honestly, that's all I really want to say about this book. There are body horror elements in here. I loved with the main character, his relationship with the sibling, because I'm the oldest of 5, and I could really relate to some of the things that he was feeling and the protective element that he was talking about in this book. But like I said, I don't want to say much about it. I'm thinking about doing an exclusive review for this book because I have so much to say, and like I'm still pondering this. I actually dreamt about it. It's just so good. So, spoiler, next month I'm actually reading I Was a Teenage Slasher, so I'm reading that for the Full Moon Readathon, for Jan's readathon, and it's also actually the book club pick for the Literally Dead book club and the book troop. So I'm definitely picking that one up next. But after that one, I really want to come back to The Only Good Indians, because as I said, like, this one I have had on my list for so long, and after reading that one, I'm like, I want to read everything that he writes. So I'm sure that I will pick this up in the next month or so, and look out for my wrap up for August and my Full Moon Readathon wrap up, because I will definitely be reading I Was a Teenage Slasher by Stephen Graham Jones. So, really quickly, I just want to go over what ultimately I read for
each prompt. So I guess just for starters, for Joe's Library, I did read When the Reckoning Comes and really liked this book. I think I gave it a 3 out of 5 star. Hold on, let me triple check my ratings. Yeah, I gave this one a 3 out of 5 star. This is the one I originally intended for the historical element prompt. And then for the crime fiction prompt, I read All the Sinners Bleed by S.A. Cosby. This is the one that I did have originally slated for this. And I gave this one, sorry, I don't want to tell you wrong. I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. Then for the prompt of a male Indigenous author, I was supposed to read The Only Good Indians, but instead of reading this one, I read Mapping the Interior, and I think I'm giving this one a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Then for the prompt, the Black Male Author, I was going to read The Changeling by Victor Laval, but then the Olympics happened and time started dwindling away, so I didn't have time to pick this one up. And either All the Sinners Bleed or the next one I'll talk about, The Violin Conspiracy, either of those work. A book with a musical element, I read The Violin Conspiracy and gave this one 3 out of 5 stars. And this is the one that I originally had slotted for that. And then the only other one that's a little bit of a change is The Free Space. So originally I had Amari the Night Brothers. Don't worry, so many people were excited that I was going to read this book. I am in the middle of this right now, but I read Pariwo of the Sower in July. I read Pariwo of the Sower in July for The Free Space, and I believe I gave that one a 3.5. Let me see. 1 second. Yeah, a 3.5 out of 5. So I did complete all of the prompts, and I would say that was a very successful first round of July Noir and Blackoweenathon in general, and I am very eager to look forward to October in order to do the full month-long readathon of Blackoween. So look out for my August wrap-up if you were excited about me reading Amari, because I'm definitely going to read this one and the second one in August. And that's all I got for you. Thanks for tuning in for this vlog. Shout out to Bree for keeping this thing alive, because like I said, I wouldn't have picked up some of these Black authors and some of these genres, even like crime fiction isn't a thing that I would do, and I thoroughly enjoyed myself this time. I didn't have anything under a 3 star, so I feel like that's a win. All right, that's it. I will catch y'all in the next video. Thanks for being here. Bye.